Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am Tudo Frank. On this series, we are looking at database design and data analytics using MySQL. We want to look at the language of the database called SQL. So we go straight to the training proper. We have a database like what you see on the screen. We have an Excel file like what you see on the screen, and we are asked to create a database that will help us store the sales record properly using MySQL. So I got my exam like I demonstrated in the last video. I got my scam. My exam is working very well, and I got my MySQL workbench right here. So I'll get to work by increasing this. I just want you to see it boldly. You should see my code boldly. First thing I'll do, I'll create a database. Create database. That's the first code I'm typing here. Create a database. Then the name of the database should be sales record. I should terminate this query with a semicolon. There should be a terminator at the end of every query. So looking at this query, you see the keyword have changed. The color of the keyword changed to blue. When you type a text in MySQL and it changes to blue, it means that that particular text is a keyword in SQL. Now checking here, we see a blue dot here telling us that this query is good to go. Assuming I place something like a comma here, you see there's an X here showing you that this query is not correct. By removing this, it gets back to blue, showing that this query is correct. So to run the query, I will hold down my control key on the keyboard and I press enter. That query is supposed to have been run successfully. There's a problem here. Sales record already exists. So there is a database already created on this system with the same name. So what I need to do right now in this case that the database already exists is that I have to delete whatever exists. So I can come down here and I type here drop. In your own case, you might not have this experience because you may have not created any database with the name sales record. So please pardon me, I have to remove what already exists. So if I type something like drop sales record and I run this line of the query, drop sales record, drop database, forgive my typing skills, drop database sales record. That is successfully dropped. So I can create a new one by saying create database sales record. If I run this query one, it's going to run now successfully. How do I know it did not run the first time? Down here on the outputs, on the action output, you could see when the query didn't go. Like when you have the rate, the error was that you can't create database sales record because this database already exists. That's what the error message here means. So it was from the error message that makes me understand that this may have already exist, which I have to remove it before I can create a new one. Now I have a lot of database, as you can see here on my screen. You may not have this much, but I have a lot of database. If I refresh this menu by clicking on this refresh button, it's gonna refresh and we have the one called sales record now over here, as you can see. So the next thing I need to do is I have to set this database as the default database. I want to set this sales record to be my default database so that whatever code I'm going to type will only affect this database called sales record. So I come down here, I will use the language, I will just say use. The keyword in setting a database to become a default database is use, followed by the name of the database. So I just call it use sales record. Semicolon must be there to terminate the query. Then control enter will run the query. Now I have set it as I have now set sales record to be our default database. If you check now on the schemas, you see that sales record is bold, which means this is the default database we'll be working on. So the next thing I'll do now is go ahead and start creating the table. We have one table here called sales record, of course. We have this order ID, region, manager. We have salesman, we have item, we have units, we have unit price, we have sales item. So first thing you need to do before you start creating a database is better you state out all the columns you need on a table and equally understand the data types you will use for each of those columns. For example, we have the first column here called order ID. The second one is called region. The next is called manager. Next one is called salesman. Next is item. We have units. We have units, price. We have sales amounts. That is all we got. So I would like to make them look bold so you can see it better. Next thing we will do is we have to identify their data type. What kind of data will be accepted for each of these columns? That is what we call data type. So I would like the order ID to be integer. Integer means numeric characters. And we are going to set some stuff, some conditions for that first column. But basically it's going to be integer. I would like to use capital letters for that. The region, I would like my region to be voucher because I can't really sit down to type. It's possible to sit down and type all the region and make it a kind of optional, what we call enum. Because of this training on database, you can understand enum. So we'll make the region voucher, and the voucher value shouldn't exceed the length of the characters shouldn't exceed 25. Okay. So I just type here voucher 25. That will do the work. That will do the work. Voucher 25. Then supposed to be at the end here. Forgive my typing skills. All right. Manager could follow suit. I would like the manager to be voucher 25 as well. Salesman, voucher 25. Item 70. Units can be integer. Unit price have to do with money. When we are storing money, we use the decimal. You will open bracket and see 11,0. Alright. Then sales amount will follow suit with decimal 11,0. That is it. So now we have decided that these are the columns. These are the different columns we're going to have. And each of these columns will have this data type. Please, it's very important you decide this, as it's going to help you in the process of designing the database. You must know each column and their data type. Which column will have this data type? You have to write this down before you start designing the database, else you're going to get yourself confused. So we got to now get back to our database, and we start by creating the table. To create a table is very simple. You will start with the word create. When you are building a new object on a database, you use the language create. You use the statement create. The create statement is used to build new objects on a database. In this case, we are not building database. We are building what? Table. To create table, it must follow with the name. So the name I will give to this table is called, let me just call it record. Create table, call the table record. The name we are giving to the first table is record. Then I will open brackets and enter. I have to describe the property of this table. So what will be the property? We are going to continue from here in our next video. I want to take time and take this step by step so that you will understand better. In this video, we've been able to create a database with the name sales record. We have also been able to set that database as our default database. Then thirdly, on this same video, we have been able to define the columns we are going to have in our first table together with the data types, that is the kind of data that will be accepted into each of these columns. We have decided that the order ID will store integer values, region will store voucher, sales, a manager and salesman, even item will equally accept voucher. Voucher here are basically alphanumeric characters. Then unit will be stored in integer, while unit price and sales amount will be stored in decimal. We have done this perfectly. So in the next video, we will continue building the table by typing the rest of the code. Thank you very much. I am Frank.